Welcome back to Software Without Borders, where we explore the ever-evolving world of software and its impact on businesses and industries worldwide. I'm your co-host, Andy Hilliard, CEO of Accelerance. And with me today is my co-host, Ryan Schauer, Partner Success Manager at Accelerance.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, and today we're excited to have Kenneth Lopez join us. Kenneth has been working with Accelerance for years, probably one of our oldest connections. Seasoned software executive, consultant with deep background in the SaaS platforms, AI, digital health, enterprise software. So Kenneth, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Kenneth. Yeah, you bet. And Kenneth, we're super excited to hear your insights on, navigating the challenges of modern product development. And I kind of want to just explore your entire career and the thoughts and ideas and things that are shareable and can benefit other people, the listeners. And by the way, we're going to talk about this too, but you're writing a book a lot about your experiences and the learnings of, starting a multitude of companies across a lot of different industries and how you go about it. So we'll delve into that too. But, I kind of like to start off just by starting from the near beginning. In fact, I was on a podcast the other day, and they really asked me some formative things that happened in my life, even from my childhood, and just connecting the six dots, the six degrees of differences. And so I'm a little bit curious. Can you actually go way back and sort of describe your upbringing and maybe let's dig into some common threads?
Again, thank you for having me. I will go way, way back. So I'm an entrepreneur by nature, or I don't know, by nature. Just because even when I was in high school, I was always thinking on ways of how I can make money. And I end up doing different things with technology. So kind of like I understood technology. So at the beginning, I was fixing computers for my teachers. I was now we have Spotify, but back then you either have your CDs where you just buy it with music. But in my case, I was doing something a little bit in the stretch, meaning that I was buying MP3 music, storage all this MP3 music and creating albums. And I will give it to you, Andy, and say, what do you want in your CD? So I will make you your own CD room with music, so you can play in your stereo, but you will choose the music, almost like your playlist of Spotify.
Okay, so wait a second. Let me interrupt you here because obviously, you got an accent. You're Latin. So give me some geographic points in your life. Where were you when you were doing this, and where were you born? Where did you grow up, and stuff like that?
I'm originally from Peru. I was born in Lima, Peru, and I was in Lima, Peru when I was doing these experiments or my first entrepreneurial adventures. That's how I did it. You need to be creative, otherwise there was no way. There was no other way, basically.
Did you go to a private school, or did you just, were your parents an influence? Or were you like Silicon Valley Steve Jobs, going out to knocking on the door of the HP, guy? And what was the environment? Describe that.
I mean, it was private at school. That's why they were able to pay me for whatever I was selling. But I think my biggest influence was my dad. He's an engineer as well, not a software engineer. He is an electronic engineer, which was kind of like the hype back then. So he was the biggest influence, and that's why I was interested in computers. I was building my own computer when I was, I think, 12 or something. So I stopped buying them, and that's how I ended up working with computers. Just because it was interesting, fun, something new. I can talk, or I can relate better with computers than a human sometimes. But yeah.
Did your parents buy you a computer? Did you were you reading something? Did you have friends that influenced you and you wanted to be getting into that stuff? What sort of initiated that whole?
I think seeing my dad building, his company with circuits and building machines. And I said, I want to do that, but with computers. So they didn't buy me a computer. They gave me the pieces because kind of like my dad was improving his computer and he said, okay, here, there's a motherboard that I don't need. Go and play. Then here's a video card. Go and play. And suddenly I ended up building the computer. Well, of course, it was a very old 286, probably 60 hertz of power. Nothing crazy, but I was able to start playing games that I learned the OS and then, Unix and then how to code. In fact, my first book, I have it right here. It's C by example that my dad gave it to me. So it's kind of like, stop bugging me and go and learn something. And that's how I did my first Hello World with C, and that took me to the rest.
So you're building computers, and you're also, starting to weave in an entrepreneurial aspect of this. This was in high school, and I was still in Lima.
Yes, it was in high school, still in Lima, because I want to improve my computer so I can do more things. I need money. So I was like, okay, what I can do, and that's why I was kind of like burning music CDs for people. That way I was charging, I think, $20 per CD at that moment. Yeah. Because it was custom made. So it's custom made music for you, and you can play it in any stereo. And people were like, oh yeah, I want 5, I want 2. It's great. And I understood, that's where I understand revenue, gross profit, net profit, just because it's like, okay, I'm running a small business. Of course, that lasts for a couple of years. And then MP3 was able to be listening in everywhere, but still, it was a nice experiment.
Okay. So describe what transitioned after that. What was the evolution point after that?
Evolution after that, I went to university. There, I was applying the same thing. Great. This is nice. Learning something. But I want to try some new things. And the way that I see it in my journey is I didn't like so much university overall because I was expecting something more complex, engineering speaking. So I said, okay, great. I cannot drop out because my mom will kill me. So I was using every semester as an incubation period for an idea. My objective was, if I try 8, 10 things, nothing worked, great. I know that I'm an entrepreneur, and I'll go find a job and everybody will be happy, and I will never be thinking, what if? So what I did is every semester I need to come up with an idea, execute it, scale it, and see if I can do break even at least. That's my goal. If I'm break even, I will try it one more semester. If I make money, I will continue, and so on. So the first 3 things that I built were products, which was great. I was very good finding people and working on the coding side or in the engineering side. But I was very bad selling and marketing because I had no idea. I was 18 or something. So what I ended up doing is okay, why I'm building products for myself? Let's build a company that is building products for somebody else. And that's how I ended up building Tecton. Because rather than just me building a slideshirt.com or a lynda.com, because those were the things that I was trying to build, and I built them, I said, no, let's build products with quality for other people. So that way they pay me for the development, and I don't have the risk of I don't care if they sell it or not, because they already pay me for my development, and they will be happy because they have a quality product.
Yeah. I mean, you realized you couldn't scale because in order to scale, you need people and skill sets and different functions, and there's only limited time, and you can't replicate yourself. So yeah, that's where did you learn English?
The computer helped just because the computers were in English only. So my dad was like, if you want to use a computer, you need to learn English, because there was not a Spanish version of that. So that was my first interaction. So coding itself, I knew English by coding, not so much by speaking, just before, because that was the only way to do it, handle the computer. And then I was lucky enough that I spent some time in Florida, and then I was working during the university in Wisconsin. And I know people will say that I'm crazy, but I love the cold weather. The winters in Wisconsin are beautiful for me.
You are crazy.
I know. So I was enjoying the winters there working. In different roles. I was in university, and they gave me 3 months to go and work. So I chose Wisconsin. Why? Because I can practice English. There are not many Latinos over there because of the cold weather, and I was able to interact with more people because I was working as a waiter. I was working as a lumberjack. Believe it or not, I was working as a driver. So I was doing everything. And lucky for me, I think I went 3 times. The 3rd time, I was working in a software company, because the owner of the businesses had one company that did CMSs in .NET. So the guy was like, do you want to work there? I said, sure. And that adds more to the equation. So I was making money, because this is the long story short is I used these 3 winters to fund Tecton itself. That's why I didn't raise money, because I was working every single day. I was saving money so I can pay development, so I can buy computers, so I can create a company. And I was learning at that software company. I was working as a waiter, so I can improve my interaction with people, just because I was really shy. I'm an engineer after all. That's how I did it. That's how I improved my English and all that.
You mentioned Tecton, which was your first venture into nearshore software engineering, right? Based in Lima, of course. You've been involved with a lot of different companies, both inside and outside of technology. Equals 11 is another one that you're currently involved with, which is Salesforce enablement and Salesforce maintenance and development, right? So take us back to the genesis of Tecton. When did it start, and how did you start to scale that?
It started officially in 2008, when the biggest crisis in the world started. So I thought it was a very good timing, because companies will want efficiency. So I looked for that upside. I was still in school, but I knew that I could do something. Worst thing that could happen is I will fail, and I still live with my parents. So nothing major will happen.
Did you have the mindset that where a lot of people, it's like it's the worst of times. Let's batten down the hatches. Let's don't do anything. Did you feel that this is an opportunity, because eventually it's the market is cyclical and people will want to break out of this lack of economic progress, and eventually there'll be greater demand?
I didn't have. Yes, of course, I have a growth mindset, which is, for me, if there's a crisis, that's an opportunity. If everything goes good, it's an opportunity. So I like to see the upside on both sides. And again, in my head is everything it's an upside, but also if I fail, I will learn, and I will do it again, and I will do it again until I say it's enough. So that's how I see it. That's why I start operations. Being in a school with junior people and trying to get into the US market. Why? Because when I tried to do it in Peru, everybody was like, "How old are you?" "Yeah, 20. "Okay, did you finish school?" "No." "Okay, then we will never give you a project." And it was very interesting in the States, because they didn't care if I finished school or anything. It's like, "Can you do this?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, we can do it." And in fact, my value proposition at the beginning was like this. Give me your most horrible project, the one that nobody wants to do, and picture this in 2008, where open source was not as sexy as it is right now. So it's like, just give me your open source projects. Give me your projects of efficiency, something that nobody wants to touch. The things that your biggest providers, they don't care, because it's nothing. And if you don't make it, you don't pay me. So all the risk is on me. So I will work. If it works, you pay me. If not, you don't pay me. Period.
Who were you working with to find? I was curious to ask. I think you're talking about where you found your first opportunity. So who were you talking with that you were like, "Hey, give me your worst deal"?
Sure. So I was lucky, because I was working with my end client was a huge bank in the US, and I cannot say the name. Of course, I didn't get it directly. I get it through a company that was providing services to them. And I was pitching them "Hey, I know that you're working with this bank. I know it's a crisis. They need efficiencies." And I come up with a list of efficiencies. This is not the cloud, that everything is in the cloud. It was servers. So I said, they need efficiencies on hard drives. They need efficiencies on logs. They need efficiencies on X, Y, and Z. These guys were like, "Yeah, that makes sense. Let me pitch to the bank." And they said, "Yes, we need that help." And I said, "Give that to me." It's very, very boring. And most people, they don't want to do it, because it's a lot of computer science in reality. So that's why they give me the shot. And one thing took me to another one. They like the work. They were a referral. I worked with another bank the same way. And suddenly I was working with a financial services. Picture this, I was really young. Then the next thing that happens is that these banks were asking me for more crazy things, because my street rep was like, "Hey, these guys, they can build crazy things. And they if they don't do it, they don't charge you." And that works, because I end up working on different projects, like small AI projects for voice recognition, things that today are easy, but back then they were something new. So that's how I started my journey. And of course, it was really interesting.
No, it is, especially that time, especially also in the finance space. When I know it very well. I was at the banks in that financial crisis, and spending money or moving and doing something different was not a topic of that anyone had in mind. It was survival, especially in 2008. So that's super impressive that you're able to leverage that into what you have today. So what do you see today? Moving from the beginning to now. I mean, what are you seeing today that's driving you and driving the industry? Is it more? Are you seeing AI more and more? Is it other tech stacks, or what's been trending with you guys?
I think it's a mix because AI, everybody wants to talk about AI, and AI, it's new buzzword, like it used to be agile, like it used to be cloud, and so on. But I think where are we going? It's a mix. It's a mix of these flavors. Why? There is a lot of modernization, like in the same way that we're talking about efficiency back in the day. Right now is about modernization, because you have software that was built 20 years ago that is specifically in the bigger the company. You know how this goes. Like, don't touch that server. Nobody even reboot that computer, because nobody knows if it's gonna be back alive. First of all,
bubblegum and duct tape.
Yep. So there's a lot of components on modernization that they need to be taken in consideration. So for me, it's not so much AI. It's also about kind of like geriatric software. We need to see all this old technology, that how we transform. And that's where you can use AI, because there are a lot of tools that they change languages, because at the end, this is languages. So that's one bucket. The second bucket, it's AI. Yes, AI, but not so much I built AI. It's more like, in our case, how we leverage AI so we can be more efficient. Like in technology, even in Equals or Tecton, we like to use AI because my developers are 30% more efficient, or the quality is 20% better than any other developer, because we're leveraging those tools. That's how I see AI in technology per se, more than saying that they will be replaced. Of course, for simple things, perhaps, but for the most complex parts, I'm not seeing an AI computer building or an AI engine building microservices and orchestration any day soon. But of course, they can do the modernization piece, which means I will transform Power Builder to .NET as a monolith. And then, of course, you need an engineer or a team of engineers to transform that into microservices. That's how I see it. And
so how are you?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Keep on going.
Last but not least is a human component. That now that we are distributed, it's way more complex to create culture. But before, I love it because we had 2 offices, and I was flying back and forth to those offices, and you can get into a room, and this culture is really great because people care. Right now, I'm not saying they don't care, but it's like, I don't know you. I mean, I don't know you in the same way. Like in this conversation, I know both of you because I see them so many times that it doesn't matter if we're here or having a beer. We cannot create that yet with technology, in my perspective, and that's a huge challenge for the future.
Yeah. For sure. In fact, that technology is acting more as a crutch, and it's sort of undermining some of the principles that we had grown to appreciate and recognize in the past, that creates around culture and team building. And a lot of people think that we can't accomplish this through technology, and I'm like, to a certain extent, but if you drink too much of that Kool-Aid, you're going to start relying on that, and it's very commoditized, and it's very one-dimensional, and you're going down a path that it's weakening the core of your ability to be successful. So, I always warn people, is like, don't get, technology will continue to try to be that solution for you, and in many ways it is. But it's not. It doesn't replace, some of the principles of relationship and team building, interaction, and culture. Yeah. I did have a question before that, and I want to ask this to everyone, and that is, when you say like your developers are 30% more efficient in developing software, and of course that's going to continue to grow. How are you immediately providing benefits to the client that they can tangibly feel that you as a service provider are more efficient and more effective, what does that translate in terms of value? Do I get 30% discount today as opposed to yesterday or 5 years ago? Are my rates lower because you're faster? Are we splitting the benefits? How tangibly are we sharing these benefits? And how are you committing to that? How are you contractually committing to it or whatever?
It's not that I will give them a discount. It's more like I can produce more with the same rate, meaning that I can produce more in the same time. So at the end, it's good for you because what it could take you 1.3 or 1.3, I'm doing it in 1, for example. Or the other thing is like the maintenance part, because maintenance is a huge component of any product development. So what I can promise you is like maintenance, usually it's like this refactor. Let's do X, Y, and Z because you need to do it. Okay, that's going to be cheaper.
Are you somehow trying to describe are you doing this comparison of where it used to be 1.3, now it's 1, where it used to be 9 people, now it's 7 people, or all of that has, tangible value, aspects to it. Are you communicating that? I think a lot of it gets lost in the translation. People just assume, efficiency, but you're not being described as how much you're gaining by working with us. We are an AI first company, and we are very proactive about building efficiencies through AI and then giving it back to you. And this is exactly how we're giving it back to you.
We make a huge effort in the maintenance part, as I mentioned, because that's key. In any product development, you have phases. Product development could be version 1, and that version 1 might take a year. And after that, it's ongoing maintenance. Your maintenance is going to be way cheaper than if we build it without AI. Why? Simple things. Quality, documentation, knowledge transfer. Just because in most of these cases, when you do the transition, assuming that you're transitioning to another team, that's where you get everything lost. You don't have a good document. Something as simple as documentation or like comments on the code. We have the tools that will allow you to improve the time. Even if it's not perfect, it's better than having nothing, because nothing is what usually happens. And that happens to us. Now, at least even for us internally, if we want to switch a developer, it's not such of a pain because there is something there that somebody can just start. So those are the efficiencies that we are giving to our customers. Of course, I won't reduce the rate because what's end up happening is we're more efficient. So I'm not increasing the rate. I'm just maintaining the rate, and you're getting more benefits in quality on the code and also on the maintenance.
Could switch around and eventually start to charge more, right? Because you are so efficient, you are delivering faster, and that's, depending on how you have your pricing and everything set up. I mean, customer bottom line wants something sooner rather than later. So I'm sure people would, pay that type of premium. And I think that's the way the market is going, right? Is starting to ramp up those teams, get to an efficient level, and start to ramp them down and replace with automation and hopefully AI, right? So
I hope you're tangibly describing, quantifying, and making sure that this communication of benefits and efficiencies are not only getting through to the primary buyer, let's say the CTO, but also is getting communicated to other stakeholders, because a lot of people just take it for granted. And in fact, you're producing incremental value from where you came from and from historically speaking, and you're delivering a lot of new benefits. But I hope you're doing a good enough job. I think all of us, and I'm not pointing at you, but I'm pointing at everyone. I don't think a lot of companies are doing an adequate job at communicating to all the stakeholders. And what's our rationale? Why are you not reducing your prices? Well, it's because we're delivering, working software faster. We're reducing maintenance time and effort, and we're, all of these things that you're just talking about, need to be factored in and shared.
Also, even the AI itself is not only in technology. We try to apply in every single aspect of the company. Of course, they might not see it or they might not care, but at least in technology and recruiting, we apply it and we show them, hey, if before I used to send you 3 candidates and you only like 1, now with the AI tools that we use, you like 2. Great, at least it's something better. And we eventually want to send you the 3 that you will love the 3 of them, or so on. But of course, in other aspects, even for invoicing, operations itself in general, the company, we're trying to apply AI as well. That's because we're not building anything. We just want to learn so we can recommend our customers as well. Because in some cases, we learn from those processes. And when we have a need, we can tell them, yes, we tried that, it didn't work out. Let's try something new. Or perhaps if it's the case, there's nothing out on the market or nothing good, now we need to build it. But only if that happens. We don't want to build software just because we want to build software.
You're talking about earlier with your teams, Kenneth, and then talking about with everyone being distributed. How do you handle that now? How do you handle that today? Like we're talking about AI and efficiencies, and the history I have with software development. I've only done it with majority of the time it's all been outsourced with distributed teams. How do you pull everyone together? I know no one wants to work in the office anymore. Maybe you guys are doing a little bit of a hybrid approach, but keeping that team dynamic together at the company when everyone's, sitting at home. Because, working as a team, you do gain efficiencies that way.
This is the chicken and the egg, because if you have offices and people goes, they create a subculture. And they kind of like you create two cultures, the ones that go, the ones that they don't go, because, like, the chit chat happens in the office, so they don't have that chit chat, and suddenly they start talking about different products, different ideas, and you have two different teams. It's complex. I'm not saying that let's go back to and have a huge office where everybody will go to work. Now, in our case, it's a little bit different. We want to have the offices or the spaces where they can go mostly for meetings, onboarding, kickoff projects, reviews, deployments, things like that, where they can gather. Just because going to an office to work 8 hours when you can do the same thing in your house, doesn't make any sense. There is no purpose on that. So I want to have people integrating, and the way that we do it is we use coworks in all these countries. So you have X amount of hours, and we try to allocate the teams basically in geographical locations. So that way, if we have a project in Lima, the team can just go in Miraflores and rent an office and use it for the day, today, or the week, or whatever they need. The same thing in Colombia, the same thing in Argentina or Mexico. Of course, that's not everything. As long as we hit a mark of perhaps 30 people in one country, we try to hire somebody from HR in that country so they can do integrations, like something that kind of will connect people. Because one thing is working on a project, and a different thing knowing that you can trust a person or understand how they operate, and that's only doable, like if you met him face to face. So we try to do that. And once every other year, we try to gather everybody in one country, kind of like for a huge gathering where we try to kind of like make sure that everybody see each other. It's expensive, but it works.
Yeah. So can I ask you also, I'm glad you went down this path, Ryan, because that's exactly what was on top of my mind. At the same time, it seems to me that clients are less prone to do quarterly visits, maybe because there's no place to visit per se. And that could be challenging too, because, you're reinforcing by not having the people together, by not having the clients and the developers get together. It kind of reinforces this transactional, throw it over the wall, binary type of relationship, which has definitely its pitfalls. Of course, it may seem efficient, but at the same time, it's often lacking sort of a commitment or accountability, or the necessary investment in the culture or the relationship. So how do you maintain that?
We used to do, and you remember this, we used to travel a lot to visit clients, and we love to bring the clients back to the office. Now, because there is no office that they can see, it doesn't make any sense. What we do is like we take the teams to the clients' offices or to meet with them again for the same thing. If there's going to be a huge deployment, okay, let's have the team in the client's office. If there is a kickoff, let's do it in the client's office, because that's the only way that we create that connection. And of course, for me, it's very important because we need to create a team. We don't like to be seen like, hey, they provide software. It's kind of like, we are a team. If this is the success of everybody, the success. Otherwise, I don't win anything saying, yeah, my backend was great, but everything else failed. That's not a success story for anybody. And we do it. It's I don't want to say it's more expensive because we're spending the same amount of money like before, but it's important for us to travel a lot
Sure. So, I mean, obviously you're needing to, both parties need to justify the cost, but, if you consider the overall cost of development in return, in regards to, team building, continuity, lowering turnover, creating more collective commitment to the team effort, reducing contingency. There's so much value that'll pay for the plane tickets. Now, you visit clients, but wouldn't you rather have clients come to Latin America to break bread and appreciate the environment and the culture, even though you might not have offices? I always felt like the client coming to visit offshore or nearshore has a greater impact in team building than if the service provider were to come onshore to the customer's environment where it's more sort of transactional.
It's very few clients they want to go visit Latin America in general. It's kind of like, it's like if you guys can come visit us, it's easier for us than we going over there. Just because, again, there is no office. They just became more addicted to work from home, so they can just they just go to the office. Yeah, they just go to the office when we're there, and that's it.
Man, it's like, I hate to sound like an old fogey, but back in the day, when I ran software development out of Costa Rica, and I know back in the day when I used to visit Peru. Yep. The both professional and personal experiences that I had in visiting Lima and Miraflores and actually, Kenneth, you took us on a sand dune skiing, adventure, and we went to a winery in Peru, and we just Miraflores and ate at the what was the name of that? Punta Arenas? Is that the name of the restaurant? Punta Arenas, had the most amazing food. Now, you may say like, oh, that's a boondoggle, a waste of time. It's actually not, because, you got to learn about the people who were on the team and what was important to them, what made them happy, what energized them, what were they all about? I mean, the relationships and the stickiness and the commitment to one another. It's you're going to support a friend and a cohort much more than you are a widget,
Right.
And that's what technology can do to people. It gives them the false sense of connection.
Yep. Exactly.
So, I still am a big advocate for that. I mean, I've seen over years and years and years the continuity, the longevity of relationships, the scalability of relationships, the commitment of success, the servant leadership, all of that stuff is enhanced by, visiting one another. Now it's visiting one another is so much better than never visiting, and actually visiting sort of offshore and nearshore, where honestly you walk away with a lot of personal experiences as well as professional benefits, right?
Agree. 100%. Like, again, I think it's critical for creating a good team and everything, but these days it's more complex to achieve, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you actually, and I'll give you a big thumbs up. You have the kind of personality where you are an energetic advocate for the customer and the customer experience, almost to a fault, I would say. Where a lot of technology leaders come from such a problem-solving background that they're more introverted, and they just want to solve the problems. They don't want to have really a lot of human interaction. They just want to understand what the problem is and solve it. Where you have the unique sort of bilateral understanding and personality attributes to want to interact with customers and serve them and have a relationship with them. I mean, is that something you've leveraged over time?
We are selling trust at the beginning, not software. So if we cannot create that trust with our customers, which is, for me, it's kind of like understanding like all the perspectives, like what they need that. And at the same time, I explain to my team why we need to do that. So if I don't have those why aligned, I cannot create that trust. And that's why I need to see them face to face and understand, like, what is really the pain? Because sometimes clients, they tell you about the fever, but they don't talk about the infection. So I need to understand what's the infection so I can treat the fever, not the other way around. That's why we have so many layers of processes to make sure that whatever we're building is actually solving the issue, not just building software because they said, oh, I need a new CRM. Great. What that will solve.
Yeah. Well, what are some of your critical path tips on building credibility and trust as quickly as possible? I know a couple of them, but there's certain things you do in order to break through the competition, to be more dimensional than someone else, and to start building that credibility and trust. What are some ways you do that?
Well, for me, it's always asking questions at the beginning. Like, again, this is going to sound harsh, but it's like, I don't believe anything that the client said at the beginning. It's like, yeah, you have that pain. Perfect. And I start asking you questions just to double check that it's almost like the doctor. You might say, my back is hurting me. Yeah, great. Okay. Explain me what you do every day, how you do it. Then I realize, okay, it's not your back, it's your knee or your bed or your pillow. I have no idea. I need to get into those. And once that I have those code smells, I can tell you, great, let's do a health check. If it's Salesforce, let's do a discovery, a consulting engagement, just to understand if we can help you. And also you can learn how we work. And after that, I might tell you, great, we need to build something. Or suddenly it's like, no, based on your processes, you need to use these 3 tools that they exist. It's going to cost you, I don't know, a couple of $1,000s, and you need to build software. We just integrate them. Or in other cases, hey, let's use this out of the box on Salesforce, and you don't need anything else.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good approach because, you deal with clients every day, but sometimes you don't know the depth of their knowledge and what the types of problems they're actually trying to solve, or if they've just been given an objective to say, hey, go solve this, and then they're reaching out. So to be curious and to dig deep into the root cause would really get them the final answers. Otherwise, you're going to find it out, somewhere down the road, and eventually it'll turn out to be like your fault, and then everyone gets upset. So to really take time in the beginning of those projects to figure out that root cause is it's well worth the time and effort that you put into it.
You also you also fly a hell of a lot. So you do things that people or competition is not willing or able to do. You meet people where they are. You get in rooms, you whiteboard with them. You give, I think, you told me at one point you were giving free classes. And that is a tangible investment in building a faster, more credible, trustworthy relationship, right?
Exactly. That's how I got my biggest clients, is giving lectures.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about that.
So for example, we got a huge payment processor. I cannot say the name, but they were trying to work with the startups. And suddenly I told them, it's easy to buy a company or a startup. It doesn't mean that it will work. Because of course, if you see them from their perspective, they have all the money in the world. It's kind of like, I want to buy you. And of course, with the right amount of money, everybody will sell. That doesn't mean that whatever you're buying, it will continue working after that. So they had that issue, and they didn't know how to connect. They didn't know how to interact with the startups. And that's kind of like the idea of my second book, how corporations can work with the startups, because these are two different worlds. And I was teaching them like, hey, and a startup is an entity that it needs speed. They need, if you promise A, you need to give them. Otherwise, they will just go with a different provider, different client, or they will leave. As simple as that. And they will build it again, and they won't work with you. So I did a workshop about that and microservices and among other things, so they can understand how these companies are built. Because of course, if you're in a bank or one of these companies, you have all the time in the world because everything is slow. Startup, it's kind of like they will be dead in 6 months if you don't answer. So I taught them, I give a whole lecture, like a 3-day courses about that. And they said, great, what else can you do? Here we go. Tecton can help you in all these. Suddenly we end up working with several banks. So.
Absolutely. I mean, when you're together tangibly, and you're spending time together, and you're transferring information, you're building obviously credibility. You're opening up windows for conversations about how can we take this to the next. I mean, you want to leave the customer with wanting more, right?
Yep, exactly.
And if you do a good job, then they're going to want more. And you're right there, and they know you. You're a known entity. And so, of course, they're going to want to work with you. It's because otherwise they'd have to go all the way back to the beginning and start over. But they already appreciated what you offered, what you gave. So wait, so
Exactly.
talking about the two books, I thought there was only one, and you were writing one or something like that.
Idea of the second book, kind of like I want to write 3 books in my life. So the first one, it's in the works. The second one, it's more about like, okay, because I love the startups and I invest in the startups, and I seen from the trenches how these companies or these huge insurance companies, airlines, they love the startups, but they don't know how to interact. They don't know how to work with them, even when they have the money. Because in a startup, you have, for example, you have the engine, but you need the data. The client, they have the data and they want to work with you. But if you don't make that alignment, either the startup will die, somebody else will acquire them, or they simply will go to your competitor just because they need that speed. And most of the companies, they don't want to understand that. They think that because they are like a big player, everybody will wait. And in these days, if you wait, you're dead with the speed that everything is going. So I want to make sure that companies or executives can understand, like, if you really want to get into the startup world, even if you want to work, kind of like use them or acquire them, there is a different path for each one of them. Even acquire a company is not as easy as, oh yeah, I will write you a check. Everybody can do that. Can you be successful after that? That's where you can see the metrics of like companies acquired, companies that almost the same by these huge players.
So that's your second book. What's your first book?
The first one, it's about all my journey, meaning that, for example, the growth mindset, how lucky I was, what things happened to me. It's I don't want to say it's similar, but if you ever read Hard Things About Hard Things from Ben Horowitz, it's in that style, meaning that the journey of what happened to him, September 11, 2008, and how he built what he built. In my case, it's similar, but in my story, meaning that I'm from Peru, I always wanted to run a software company with a global approach. I was able to do it. These were the mistakes, and what kind of like are the lessons learned from all those phases. Like, I made a lot of mistakes.
Who would be your target audience for that?
Aspiring entrepreneurs, people that they want to build something. And again, you can be an entrepreneur and apply the same thing and create something inside of a company, or you can just be a student who wants to build something. And I'm writing this mostly because I've been traveling thanks to the Swiss government that they send me to different countries to teach entrepreneurship over the years. And you can see that the people, they have great ideas, but they don't believe that they can sell. They don't believe that they can get into the US market or even European market. And when you ask them why, oh no, it's because the US market, I don't speak good English or anything. It's like, dude, when I started, I sound worse than today. So you can do it.
No way.
Yeah. So that's why.
Hey, first off, you can't get away with throwing out this, like, the Swiss government's paying me to do something. What's that? What's that thing?
It's the Swiss government. They have a program called Swiss EP or Swiss Contact, where they have entrepreneurs. They kind of like select entrepreneurs, and they said, okay, Kenneth, for example, I've been in, of course, Peru, Cambodia, Vietnam, Serbia, and Macedonia. So that's where they have offices of entrepreneurship. So they send people like me and start teaching them. Like, for example, of course, there's people that are experts in investment. In my case, it's like how to scale startups globally, or kind of like mindset. Because many people, they don't believe that they can do it. From day one, they think they cannot do it. And it's kind of like, you built something that I was not able to invent never. But you just need to believe that you can sell it, and trust me, you will be rich. But they don't do it. So they send me to do some kind of psych-ops or something to help them.
Interesting. Very cool. Very cool. Yep. I have a couple more questions. I'm going to throw a curveball out here. Yeah. So you were relatively recently married. What is one thing that drives your wife crazy about you?
Working too much.
Yeah, I go figure. That was an obvious answer.
Yeah, working too much, traveling. Basically that. Because I'm not traveling as I used to, but
there's probably some times that she enjoys you traveling.
What's that? There's
probably some times that she enjoys you traveling.
Yeah, it's after a couple of months that I'm stuck in the house and driving everybody nuts. Yeah, it's like, go. You need to travel.
That's great. And I think you just bought a place in California, right?
Yes, in the East Bay. So looking forward to enjoy the warm weather of that area.
Yeah, I think Discovery Bay. Is that where it is?
Yes.
That's an amazing, like relatively new neighborhood.
Yes, it's fairly new, not that far enough that I can be happy. So
Yeah, yeah. That's very cool. And what other sort of non-technology entrepreneurial ventures do you have going?
I create my own holding of boring things that I call the boring holding, where and then that's patented, so Elon Musk cannot take it from me. Uh, where I do investments on different things. Like when I said boring, it's not that they're boring itself. It's more like the business model. It's already defined. So these are companies that you know how they make money, how they scale. So I have things on real estate, things on different technology companies, and these days it's kind of like even an event company. So I'm just buying companies that I can use technology, use AI to improve how they operate, improve their processes so they can scale and they can make money. So that's in general, if the business model is known and I can scale it, I will try to acquire it.
What personality traits do you possess, do you think are your superpowers?
I think I'm crazy enough that if I believe that something could be done, I will do it one way or the other. That helps me because even when I'm suffering, I'm saying that yeah, it's just a little bit more. And lucky for me so far, it happens like when I have a goal. My growth mindset, of course, just because again, many people ask me like, but what happens if you fail? I'll start again. If Tecton backups, I'll do it on a new one. If everything goes to hell, I'll start. So again, because I have that fear of, I'm not having fear in general. So I'm very risk averse. So I invest everything. So I invest on companies. I invest my time on the companies. And if I lose everything, we can start again. This time it's going to be easier because we'll make different mistakes. That's what I will say.
Yeah, I agree with you there. No, having known you for 15 or so years, you have a very short memory when it comes to setbacks. You're always moving forward. That growth mindset. You have a positive attitude going into it. You're very creative. You always think there's victory possible and ahead. And with each inevitable bump in the road or setback, you deal with it, you address it, you move on. That's a really powerful thing. Some of it is in your DNA, and I guess some of it is learned, right?
Exactly. I mean, in general, it's like, what is there to lose? Like, again, great. And I'd like to see it in a way like, I'm not saying that I will lose everything and I'll be fine. I'll be crying for a week and then I'll start again. But it's more like I see the upside more than the downside in every situation. Even if I make a mistake, for example, if I buy a company and it don't work, it's like, okay, great. What I can learn. So the next one, it won't happen again or will be something different. If I can learn from that mistake, it's not a mistake. It's a lesson learned and I will take it. And that's why I create, even on the holding, I create something that I call the boss. Boring operating simple system, which is all these things that I mentioned, all the mistakes turning into process. Like, okay, great. We failed hiring the HR at Tecton. What did we learn? How to recruit people that were not engineers. Perfect. That's one process that we have in every company that I operate. The same thing with every mistake.
Are there any authors or people or fictional characters or what have you that have sort of triggered you or motivated you or pushed you in a certain direction?
Oh, yeah.
Can you throw out one or two?
I have one mentor that I mentioned about him on the book because at the beginning, I was like, not the beginning, like when I was like probably 8 years into Tecton, I didn't care about financials. And I mentioned this in many podcasts. Like, I don't care financials. I don't care about numbers. Of course, I knew that the company was doing good, but I didn't have everything kosher. And then suddenly a mentor that saw my numbers, he's like, why you don't have your P&L and all these documents were well organized? Like, I don't care. I have money. I mean, we're making money with the company. And he called me an idiot. You're an idiot. So, as blunt as that. I was like, oh. And he's like, okay, this guy is good. And I love him. And then suddenly it's like, every time I see him, it's like, thanks to you, I have all my numbers, like, it could be audited right now and nothing will be, I won't have any single issue. So things like that happens, like somebody called you an idiot and suddenly you're like, oh my God, he's right. Like, I'm an idiot. I need to fix that. And things like that. I have many people in those situations that they give me huge lessons.
Well, I kind of thought you were going to throw out some sort of, Spock or you're kind of you wear a lot of nerdy t-shirts.
Yes, of
that's
course.
a compliment, by the way. So I thought maybe there was some, fictional character or some series, Third Rock from the Sun, or I don't know, whatever.
No, I mean, I use a lot of the Star Wars reference in the book for sure. Because again, it's like what I like to do in every company. It's like everybody's a Jedi, but at the same time, everybody's a Padawan. Because you might be knowing something, but at the same time, you need to learn something from somebody else. That's how we try to keep humility in everybody.
Absolutely. And those references are universal. People can understand them. Whether it comes from the Bible or Star Wars or whatever your source is, you don't have to take the content verbatim, but the principles are forever.
Exactly.
And people can relate to it. And it's like, everyone knows Star Wars and they know those characters. But so they all can relate. They all can remember because they're associating with something you all share. But the principles are eternal. That's awesome.
Exactly. So I use all those references among other things that are really geek just because that's my nature. The kind of like the idea is that it helps. You will make mistakes, at least make something new, not the same ones that I already made.
Yeah. Ryan, do you have anything we're about out of time, but I just wanted to make sure that if you had any burning questions.
No, the only thing really I'd love to hear from Kenneth is because you're based in Latin America, and it was such a best kept secret for a while. It's no longer that, but why? What is the value that you see from working, that companies can see from working in that area in Latin America, not just Peru, in America?
I think in general, the different factors. Like the first one, it's time zone. Clients, they like to sleep, so that's a no-brainer. At the same time, Latin America evolved into a way where it's not only good for some specific talent. It created a whole ecosystem of, if you want to build something really complex, you have countries where they excel in some different things. It's not that everybody's good on web and backend and mobile. You have people that are experts in data modeling, security, cyber, microcircuits, among other things. And I think that's good because you can build a very, very good team, not from one country, but from the whole region. And that's why most of the companies that are there, they have different offices, not only in one country, because you need that mixture of that variety of talent to achieve that. And that's for me. And they have the same level right now that many other areas, because before they used to tell me like, oh yeah, in Europe or in Asia, they are more sophisticated in X, Y, and Z. Today, that's not the case. Latin America can do exactly the same thing in any other region.
Well, Kenneth, thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
That's great. And it was great to have you on. Great to see you again, as always. I can't wait to get together with you in a tangible sense. We'll have to make that happen. To our listeners, we hope that you enjoyed this episode of Software Without Borders. If you're interested in learning more about product management or remote team optimization or the latest trends in software development, be sure to subscribe to Software Without Borders and leave only a 5-star rating. That's the only ones we accept on your favorite podcasting platform. So thank you very much.